White House officials are reportedly considering giving a lump sum payment to Greenlanders in an attempt to convince them to secede from Denmark and potentially join the United States.
According to Reuters, U.S. officials have discussed figures ranging from $10,000 to $100,000 per person. The White House is trying to enter a compact of free association agreement with Greenland. In such an agreement, the U.S. only provides mail delivery and military protection operations in exchange for the U.S. military to operate freely and duty-free trade.
Now, President Trump on several occasions this past week reiterated that the U.S. needed Greenland for national security.
Here is White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt commenting on the issue of Greenland on Wednesday.
The president has been very open and clear with all of you and with the world that he views it in the best interest of the United States to deter Russian and Chinese aggression in the Arctic region. And so that's why his team is currently talking about what a potential purchase would look like. All options are always on the table for President Trump as he examines what's in the best interest of the United States. But I will just say that the president's first option always has been diplomacy.
Now, Greenland's Prime Minister, Jens Frederik Nielsen, in a social media post, responded to Trump's comments of accruing Greenland, saying, "Enough is enough. No more fantasies about annexation." Nielsen earlier in a press conference said, quote, "We are not in the situation where we are thinking that a takeover of the country might happen overnight. You cannot compare Greenland to Venezuela. We are a democratic country."
Several European leaders, including France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Spain, Britain, and Denmark, have issued a joint statement on Tuesday saying only Greenland and Denmark can decide matters regarding their relations. Secretary of State Marco Rubio informed Wednesday that he would be meeting with his Danish counterpart next week in Washington to discuss Greenland.
Greenland is our ally. They're our friends. They said multiple times very firmly, we're good. We don't want to be part of the U.S. We don't want to do any of that. They said it a million times that they're uninterested. But the U.S. already has a long-standing agreement that they can, and I want to make sure I got this right, dating back to 1951, it grants us the broad right to use military in Greenland and any purposes that we need. And we can operate in bases all over the country that we already have. We can house personnel and we control the air and sea traffic. And there's so much conversation about who's in specifically the sea traffic around Greenland and how we need it to protect ourselves. Well, if we have protections in place where we can automatically work with Greenland and they just have to approve it and they're our ally, so obviously they have our best interests at heart, why do we need to take over the country as opposed to just work alongside them to accomplish whatever the mission is here?
I would say the flip side of that argument, though, is that if we already have all of that access, why does Denmark get to stake this claim over Greenland? They don't even have a top 10 military in Europe. The U.S. is providing a lot of the defense of Greenland already. They have this military base there. And I think if you look at it this way, we are clearly gearing up towards some kind of major world conflict. Russia was launching new bombs across Ukraine last night. Iran is killing its own people. The country is basically on fire. China is obviously agitated over losing their grip on Venezuela. If they decide to have some kind of incursion into the Western Hemisphere, the obvious place at this point is to go through Greenland. We have Alaska, obviously, on the Pacific side. On the Atlantic side, we, yes, have the military base there and the potential to ramp up military activity, but that takes time. Time you don't have if Russia decides that they're going to go through the Arctic and start playing games. There was a Russian oil tanker, I believe it was, that was messing around in about halfway between Denmark and Greenland recently. So I think from a security and strategy standpoint, it makes perfect sense for the U.S. to have Greenland. The question is, though, of course, can you get Greenland on board?
Paying the residents? I would take cash, but that seems like a little bit of bribery if the government's saying one thing. Imagine if another country came here and started paying U.S. citizens like, oh, go do this policy that we like.
Sure. I know. I don't love the payment. I think there should be negotiations with the country's leaders to make clear why this is a strategic benefit for both Greenland and the United States. But at the same time, it's like, okay, Denmark has all of these rights over Greenland because they won a poker game against Poland like 100 years ago. Like, give me a break.
I feel like there was a conversation this week between leadership there and our leadership.
Right.
I'm not sure that it went anywhere because of the statements that are coming out yesterday from Greenland, so I'm sure that was a non-factor. But I do think some part of me feels like we have stepped back into ancient history where we're just conquering places, going in without reasoning. We'll look back at the history books and say, okay, let's say, hopefully, prayerfully, we don't go to World War III. That's not on the table for anybody. Hopefully, China and Russia don't really want that type of smoke, and we don't. We'd like to live, right? We'd like to live.
Of course.
So let's just say everybody really does not want that kind of smoke. Then I would hate that we are just acting like this is ancient times where we're just conquering areas because we feel like it, like, Alexander the Great style and just doing whatever. I just feel like we're past that, and we have diplomatic relationships with certain countries, and we're treating, often it's been a trend, mentioning to Canada, you can be our 51st state, and treating them like China with the tariffs. We're treating our allies badly, and they're just like, bro, like, I don't want the smoke. They're just trying to just relax and be our allies and help us in whatever ways we need to. But we are threatening them, making jokes. I mean, posting pictures with Denmark with the American flag. It's like, why are you agitating us when we simply want to be an ally and a friend?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, though, the allies need to know what time it is. And, like, in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, for example, Europe wasn't pulling its weight. They were relying on the United States to do everything. And then, meanwhile, they had all of these tariffs and non-tariff trade barriers on our goods when we were allowing them all the free trade in the world. So if your ally is sort of quietly taking advantage of you, I mean, it is a good thing to make sure that you are constantly renegotiating, make sure that the playing field is fair. And especially when we're the ones
the negotiation
the
would be
massive military might to
a
protect all of
negotiation
them.
would look like handshake deal with leadership, not continuing to threaten to take over. I mean, we haven't done that with Canada. I haven't heard them bring it up again. But with Greenland, there's like active. He's saying we need to, like, major publications. They're like actually getting fearful, I believe.
We might need it. I don't know, Lindsay.
We have a lot more to talk about on Rising. Stay with us.